Okay, I've made this a reply to a video about a guy that Cashify recommended in his argument that time is an illusion. Look, what is the meaning of the word illusion? This is basically a semantic argument. And what is the meaning of the word illusion? If I am taking a walk in the woods and I see a shadowy figure, but I know that such figures, in terms of them being physical human beings, are sometimes illusions, right? So forget that. Let's say I don't say, "Oh, I see a man walking." Turns out to be illusion. I see a shadowy figure. I know it's nothing but a perception, a shadowy figure. I don't assume it's a human. Then is it an illusion? No, it's a shadowy figure. You know, an unidentified object in the sky is an unidentified object. It's not an illusion until I think it's something in particular, right? Now, his description of time is very interesting, but saying that time is an illusion is just saying that our assumptions about what time is are wrong if time has the characteristics he says. But I know that our assumptions about time are wrong. I know this, okay? I'm making very few assumptions about the phenomena of time. Now, he has a particular explanation of how this appearance of time comes to appear, right? And he could be right. But when he says that time is an illusion, it's with reference to our expectations, our Newtonian expectations. To the fact that in quantum mechanics, the problem is not, properly handled. Now we know that time is not linear from general relativity. Okay, the whole genius of Einstein was a rejection of this concept of an absolute space-time that Newton used for his own work. Okay, but we don't have that anymore. Now, what assumption is left? Yes, is there another assumption which is uh, bound to be, inaccurate in many respects? A misapprehension? Yeah, there probably is, but the solution to that is possible with psychology. When you see the figure on the beach and it's just in the corner of your eye before you scrutinize it, or if you don't scrutinize it, it's not an illusion if you know that it was just your mind playing tricks on you. When you look at the face of a cloud, a face in a cloud, so a cloud is in a shape, it looks like it's a face. You can almost always see one if you try hard enough because our understanding of faces are so flexible. That's not an illusion unless you're comparing it to the idea that it really is a face. If you just say, hey, look, I see, light and dark blotches in a cloud, which characterize a face for me psychologically, then that's not an illusion anymore. Or take this. If you see a painting of a coyote on a hillside, on a mountainside, that's an illusion at the point where you think it's a real coyote. But if you think it's a painting of a coyote, then that's not an illusion. The very same perception. It depends on how you take it. Whether something is an illusion or not depends on how you take it. So the defense against illusions is skepticism. It's to realize that when you get a perception or a pattern, a flow of dynamic, changing perceptions, that it is just an appearance. That you name the appearance and then you seek to find out what the characteristics of that appearance are. And if you do that with that approach, then it is no longer an illusion because it is an appearance. Just like the painting is a painting. All right. So that's what we're talking about. If this guy, I forget his name already, Julian Barber, I think it was. Um, if he's correct about time, then time is still, a phenomena, an appearance, and he has described some of its characteristics. Characteristics which are definitely countervailing to, the absolute concept of time that Newton had, but of course that's already been scientifically discredited. And maybe contrary to other assumptions that we're making about time. but there still is time. The existence of this phenomena itself is not an illusion. All right. It's like with determinism. It could be that time is an illusion in the sense that determinism implies. And quantum mechanics with the many worlds or many histories approach implies this as well. And I've said it many times. People that love determinism can reclaim their determinism. Okay, because everything that could happen happens. Okay. But we don't necessarily lose the phenomena of will, because there's still the question of why do we perceive this one rather than the other one. Okay. So this is my point about the fundamental, sublime difference between naming a phenomena that we think we have noticed, uh, that we think we have derived from our stream of perceptions, and actually making assumptions about what that phenomena is. His points about time possibly not being material, since we measure time by the change of physical objects. In a watch, things, the positions of the things are moving. We measure time based on how much they've moved. Right? In Einstein's ideal clock, you have a photon bouncing between two mirrors. We have to have something material like this to get an idea of time. So it's quite possible that time itself is not material, and it really is just these relations. The whole, if you look at this Julian Barber's pages, the whole triangle space or whatever, there's no utter controversy there for me. There is no absolute position. So the whole needing 10 coordinates to describe three objects, yeah, of course that's not true. Instead, you can define it as, the distances between these points, right? The distances between the points. Yes, because you can get the angles and the rest of it, the relations, right? So the idea of a universe as a relation between, way more than 3 points, a relative relation. Yeah, that's what relativism is. That's why it sounds like relate. Relativism, relate. Relationships. Yes, relative distances. And yes, time is likely to be defined in this network of interaction. Okay. But that doesn't mean that time doesn't exist or is essentially an illusion. It means that some assumptions about what time means would be an illusion and others would not be. And the way to get to one, somewhat trivial example that isn't an illusion is to say, I don't know what time is. Okay, I don't know what it really is in itself. I don't know what its characteristics are in itself. I know that it has a few characteristics having to do with the apparent sequential nature of my perceptions. Okay, that for me, my experience of what I call time, is evident in this sequence of perceptions. Okay, so if I name that pattern time, then time is not an illusion. And the question becomes, well, what are its characteristics? And can I find out characteristics that I can then apply in some novel way that allows me to, do something, accomplish something, see something that I hadn't seen before? And it becomes interesting and useful and powerful. Okay. But it's only an illusion if I assume things like, well, time is the same everywhere. Well, that's an illusion. The appearance that time is the same everywhere is an illusion. We know that because now with experiments in general relativity, we see that, well, it doesn't really appear like that. And so that part is no longer, a part of our expectation. So it's not an illusion that it appears that way because it doesn't appear that way anymore. Okay? If I see the figure on the beach and it appears like a human being, that's an illusion. If I see the figure on the beach and it appears to me like something I just see out of the corner of my eye that my brain creates in a moment of epiphania, thinking there's a pattern there that isn't there, and I realize that's what my brain is doing, then it's not an illusion. It's the reality. I see that it's a painting. It's not an illusion of a coyote. It's a painting.